when they get done doing their day and they haven't doing whatever they're doing, because they're always taking care of their business, they're taking care of their husband, their wife, their family, their brother, their sister, the dogs, the cats, they now feel like they have enough energy, sustained energy left over, so that they have energy left over for the people who they love and who are important to them at the end of the day.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What's up, all of you amazing abundant leaders? I am Wally Carmichael, your founder and host of the Men of Abundance podcast, the Pay It Forward community, proving to you that you can, in fact, live a life of abundance in family, faith, finances, and fitness on your way to having more. And make no mistake about it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having more, or even wanting more for that matter, and going after it. But what is more? More relationships, more empowering relationships, more wisdom, more education, more resources, more time. Yes, you can have more time. There are ways to do that. People think you can't buy time, but I assure you, you can buy time. There are ways to do it. We won't get into that conversation today. But another thing that you can buy is better health. And that's the conversation we're going to have today. People think, well, I can't buy better health. You can't buy more time. You actually can. There are ways to do so. And you just got to be smart about it. And sometimes buying doesn't necessarily mean expending resources. Sometimes it means just doing the right thing, thinking properly, eating properly, exercising regularly. And sometimes we need a push to do that, and we need a little bit more education because we think we know everything we need to know, but it's been proven time and time again that that's not always the case. And even when you do actually know what you need to do to improve your life in family, faith, finances, and fitness, all the above and or, is accountability. Sometimes you know what you need to do, but you just don't do it. So we need accountability. And that's another part of the conversation that we're going to have today. But before we get into that, I want you to be abundant in your actions today by paying it forward and sharing Men of Abundance with others. Sharing this conversation and other conversations that you've heard here on this podcast. It's been 6 years running, downloaded in well over 100 countries at this point, and just continuing to chug along and grow. And the audience is absolutely amazing. I get messages, emails, Facebook messages, you name it. I even get gifts that come to the door sometimes from people, specifically guests send me gifts and books and stuff, which I absolutely love. But I get all of these great messages from people just saying that last episode, that conversation was a complete life changer. It was right on time of where I was at in my life at that point in time. Thank you. I greatly appreciate the conversations and the encouragement or the connection, whatever the case may be. So think about that as you take a screenshot of your phone or wherever it is that you're listening to this and posting that on social media, or just talking to somebody and just say, hey, have you ever heard of the Men of Abundance podcast? Have you ever heard of the Men of Abundance Facebook group? Go there and check it out. It's, there's some great conversations there. And by the way, it seems like it would be religion-based, but it's not religion-based. I am a man of faith. I am a believer, but we don't make the conversations just around faith. We have all kinds of different conversations. So I hope that it has been beneficial for you listening, but you never know who's going to need to hear the conversation that we're having today or any other day. So be abundant in your actions today. Pay it forward. Share Men of Abundance with others. One other thing I want to share real quick before we get into this conversation, and this is pretty much for entrepreneurs, business owners, and specifically coaches and consultants, and that is a pile of resources that I have accumulated over the years, and all of which I personally use or have used and highly recommend. You can find those resources and tools that will save time, and this is one of the ways that you can buy time within your business. And if you're a coach consultant, you can help improve the time and the lifestyle of your clients. Go to wallyrecommends.com. That's wallyrecommends.com, and check out all the resources there. I got a video there that basically describes pretty much everything, and then multiple other videos showing how I use those tools in my business and with other clients, business owner clients that I have the opportunity to work with. Now, our featured guest today can help you live longer and better by improving your habits, health, and happiness. She will help you when you cannot find any place else to give you the help that you need. She has delivered science-based solutions over 3 decades in helping tens of thousands of people to stop adapting their lifestyle to pain and health problems that accelerate the aging process. She helps people who are aging prematurely, even though they are eating quality foods, exercising, and thinking good thoughts, and/or trying to avoid inherent diseases, yet still feel they are spinning their wheels with little to no results. When you stop adapting your lifestyle to pain and health problems that prematurely age you, you can actually reclaim your most precious asset, your health. Men of Abundance, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Pat Boulogne. Dr. Pat, welcome to Men of Abundance. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking.
Oh, my pleasure. Where are you at in the world?
I'm on the East Coast in the Northeast quarter.
Is it a little bit chilly over there?
It's cold.
Well, it's a cold 54 degrees here in Tampa.
Yeah, I would rather be in Tampa. Right now.
Me too. That's why I am. Anyhow, I like to start out with an attitude of gratitude. What do you have to be grateful for today?
That I am alive. I have an opportunity to experience how, and I mean by that because I have a dog that I have been nurturing his whole life, and he's a dog that his lifespan really should be like 12 years, and he's now going in his 16th year. And so, I've had some health challenges with him recently, but when I see him run, in a yard at his age and run across the yard, it just makes my heart melt. And the other thing is that I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity to have the knowledge that I have right now, so that I keep my body, my mind, and my soul in sync with my immune system, and that I'm really quite healthy. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, well, we're going to definitely get more into that here in just a minute. And that very, very much intrigues me because, as you probably know already, here on Men of Abundance, we talk about living your life of abundance in family, faith, finances, and fitness. And fitness includes a lot of things: health, mentally, physically, and all that. But I have to say, we've also got a tiny little long-haired Chihuahua that's quite old, and he's blind actually right now. And he's my little buddy, and I have the door closed right now, so he's sitting outside my door. Half the time he can't see me pass. Like when he comes looking for me, he's like looking around, but he's got to see shadows. He'll walk right past me sometimes if I'm standing still. Yeah, I don't even think he can smell very well anymore because he hasn't done finding me.
They lose those things.
Yeah. But he's spunky as heck.
Uh-huh.
He still chases our cat around, and he runs around in the backyard. He chases my kid around the house and stuff, and then he runs into things. So it's comical, but we got to be careful with him.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I walk my dog downtown where I'm at, and every once in a while, Jack will walk into some steps. I'm going, no, Jack. And then I'll pull him aside. He's an English Bull Terrier, and he is the Zen master of bulls terriers because he doesn't have an aggressive, molecule in his body. He's just very sweet, and everyone loves him. Squirrels love him. Animals love him. People love him. He's a girl. He'll walk a girl will be walking down the street, and he'll walk right in front of her and stop. Oh, and I go, he's a little blind. She said, he's not that blind.
Right. Very cool.
But he's really quite a cool dog, and it sounds like you have a really cool dog also.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Half the time people don't even know we have a dog because he's so quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's super quiet.
Yeah, people always say that to me all the time. Your dog's really quiet. And, you know, if he's around other larger animals like cows, I have a friend that's in the Berkshires, and there's cows across the street. And it's like when E.F. Hutton talks, these cows come leaping across down the yard to come, and they stand in front of him and they just look at him. And it's like they're having some level of like animal communication. And they're not scared of him. You know, because a lot of dogs are barky, 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 and he's not a barky kind of dog. Even horses like him. Horses just, he's thinking, how did you get to be so big? and they just kind, and they're always sniffing each other at the nose. And I have not ever seen a horse. He's been around a lot of horses, ever be really aggressive with him. So it's a pleasure to be around such a peaceful warrior, and he's really a good boy.
Excellent. What a cool soul. So we're definitely going to get more into your professional side, as I mentioned a little bit in the bio. But here on Men of Abundance, we really like to get to know the person behind the abundance. So if you would, how would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as being very authentic. You know, what you see is what you get. And I'm very direct. When somebody asks me a question, should I or shouldn't I? The answer is usually yes or no. I don't really go into, unless they ask me for like, well, why is that? And I have a canny ability to read in between lines. So when someone's telling me a story of some sort and it adds up or doesn't add up, I can have a really sixth sense about that. My ex-husband used to say that all the time about me. He goes, I don't know how you do it. And I said, well, it just doesn't make sense to me. And, you know, and the other thing about me is that I am very true to my nature, and I practice what I preach. And I am, you know, if you're my friend, you're always my friend. And and you know, and I have really good boundaries for myself. But I also have a very huge generous streak, where I always want, when I see somebody who's not well, I'm always like, so would you like to hear about, you know, like what are our options, what's going on? And, you know, I love to help people get well and maintain that wellness well into their older years, so that they can experience that participation that they want to have, that they dreamed of when they were a child, when they got older and they had children, and, you know, and they were able to play with them as opposed to watch them play.
Yeah. And we thank you for that, by the way, because it's very important to be able to, what I refer to as pay it forward with your talents and your knowledge and everything that you do. And we were talking pre-show a little bit about being authentic, and how sometimes I'll use myself in this case. Sometimes people decide they don't want to do business with me or otherwise associate with me just because of how I am. And I'm okay with that, because it allows me to be around the people that I enjoy being around. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. That makes it simple. It pares down, it funnels down exactly, you know, people who you really connect with, you know, because when you always know that really good feeling, you know, it's like knowing somebody like for years, and you can almost like think their thoughts before they say them. I always think that that's always a lot of fun when that happens. I had a friend's husband who sat there one day when we were talking, and he looked at us, he goes, do you guys actually know what you're talking about? We burst out laughing. We go, yes. And that's how both of us said yes exactly at the same time. And he went, oh, okay, I think I'll go and get some coffee in the kitchen. He just got up and left.
Yeah, so absolutely. Being authentic is extremely, extremely important to me. And I'll tell you, you know, there's been times in my past where quite frankly, I wasn't. I mean, I wanted to please everybody. And I found that trying to please everybody all the time just really caused more headache for myself. And one thing that somebody always told me, I wouldn't really call it lying. It's just not being authentic. But then you start forgetting, you know, what you told certain people about certain things that you want them to know about you. And I was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to let people know what I know and who I am. And that way I don't have to try to remember who I told what to. Right.
Well, also it's exhausting.
It is.
You know, and so at the end of the day, you're asking yourself, like, and you chisel yourself away. And I think that's what women do a lot of times in relationships, you know, is that and that I have talked to and I've helped coach, and is that, instead of saying, I really don't want to do this, this doesn't fit with me, they will go along with the show because a family member's involved, a mother, a father, an aunt, an uncle, a kid, and then they really don't really want to do that. And then, like year after year that they're doing that, they say like, oh my God, I don't know who I am anymore. And, and then that part of it, that's always a big aha moment for me when I'm working specifically with women and kind-hearted men who like, they kind of, the light bulb goes on. It's so beautiful to see somebody go like, oh, yes, that's when it started to happen. Because when you realize it, then you can say, I'm not doing that anymore. The next time that happens, what's the best verbiage can I use so that I can make myself grounded and I'm not kind of leaning in, because it's a learned behavior.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. For many, for some, it comes natural. I'll tell you, I've met people in my life that they're brutally blunt. Now I'm blunt, but it's like almost obliviously blunt. I have a cousin actually who will just blurt out the first thing that comes to her mind. I'm not going to say her name, but I'm like, what? Do you think before you talk? I mean, she goes, but it's true. I was like, yeah, you're right. It is true. But goodness gracious, woman, have some tact about it. But it's liberating. I truly appreciate people like that. I had a neighbor like that many years ago as well, that is just, unapologetically blunt. But to be for yourself, to be who you really are and to own that, it's extremely liberating. And
it is, and the people who, that are extremely brutally blunt, you can just ask them, when they, what they need to really learn is to say like, hey, Wally, can I be brutally blunt with you right now?
Or at least take you around the corner and do it in another room and not in front of everybody else. No, I've been around those people too that have no bandwidth for, and I'm just thinking, what is making you act like that? No filter whatsoever. But again, I appreciate it. That's just the type of people I like to hang around. So.
Yeah, I like this, that I rather know as opposed to like have to work at it. Just tell me.
I prefer wolves rather than wolves in sheep clothing. That's just me personally. So one of the things I like to get into, and those of us, who are doing anything in life, or not, we all end up with a kick in the gut moment. Even if you're trying to be passive and avoid it all, we're all going to have kick in the guts. And there's been multiple kick in the guts over the last year for many, many different people. But if you would share with us a kick in the gut moment that's really made a difference in your life and really kind of took you to your knees, and then we'll unpack that and see if that has anything to do with what you're doing today.
Well, when I sold my practice years ago, I had a couple things happen to me. Like the guy who bought my practice from me kept on trying to nickel and dime me. And at the very end, I just said to him, like, hey, look it, if you want this deal to go through, back off. And then, and right around that same time, I had, I was moving to Boston. And I just had when I was telling my practice, I had my staff saying like, well, how are you going to contribute to our welfare moving forward? And, I just had a lot of stuff going on. And, I had a tax issue from when I was married to my husband that came up out of freaking nowhere at the same time. And it just really took the wind out of me. And I felt that my employees at that time, who I've been very, very kind-hearted to financially, because I paid them Boston wages on Cape Cod. So they were making about anywhere from like $5 to $10 more an hour than the average person doing the same job on Cape Cod. So when they came after me for like, you got to give us some money, because you're selling this place and that kind of thing, it really, really took me back and made me want to really climb into a shell, in which I did. And when I moved to Boston, I didn't tell anybody I was a doctor, and I took time off and I traveled and just decompressed and that type of thing.
And what does that have to do? Does it? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Does it have anything to do with what you're doing and why you're doing it today?
Well, what happened is that, when, that happened, and I kind of felt like, like my shell was penetrated, like someone having leaky gut, having like holes punched into my strong-mindedness, my strong character, and I was trying to figure out like, why did that happen? And then how did I choose to respond to it? Could I have responded to it better? Could I have let it like not bother me, or when I got communication, like all that resolved itself, but it left like a really like a metallic taste in my mouth. So when I moved to Boston, and people asked me what I did, because I was rather burnt out at that time, I just told them that, I was really into healthcare. And then I started seeing some private clients and creating a private clientele as opposed to being back in brick and mortar. So I was doing a little bit of, consulting like over the phone and helping people like, what is my best questions I should ask my doctor for this. And at the same time, the other thing that really truly brought me physically to my knees is like I got hit by a snowboarder skiing. And that could stop me from being active because I was very, very active. So that all happened at the same time. So instead of, and I think my mentality changed at the time. Instead of being like, okay, so that happened, get past it, move on, keep moving forward. I felt stuck and I didn't know how to get over that part of it. And I didn't know how to get out of the, I used to coach people on this, but it's very difficult to coach yourself. To get past that and stop being a victim. And so when that happened, and how that progressed out is that I just kept on doing what I knew how to do. And I shared a ton of information with people about their health, or I would ask them like, you don't look like you're feeling very well. Someone who I absolutely did not know in Boston. And they're going, my stomach's bothering me today. And it's like, oh, you know what, you might try. And then I'd give them a remedy. Then I would see them like 2 weeks later, they go like, what do you do? What you told me to do worked perfectly fine. I was like, wonderful, that's great. And then I would avoid the question and then move on, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to give back information so that people could live better, longer, and healthier. And I wasn't in a place where I wanted to work in in brick and mortar anymore. So it was very difficult to, the concept for people working with you virtually at that time was like, forget about it. Cause that was in the late 90s going into the early 2000s. And, and I always struggled with that initially, like, how do you get the virtual part? But with COVID coming around in the pandemic, it was like an immediate, like 180-degree turn.
No, I bet. Absolutely.
And also during that time span, I decided to get a degree because I love learning. I decided to get a degree in acupuncture. So I ended up going to Miami, a school in Miami, and getting a master's in Oriental medicine.
Oh, wow. That sounds extremely interesting. I've been doing acupuncture for a little while now.
Seriously, like when that came up, I just went, what? I go, not only did he divorce, like we're divorced, I said, now I get to pay his tax bill. I guess was like, oh my God, that was a gut moment. Didn't last long though. I don't internalize things.
Well, and that's a very good point that you don't internalize things, because that's one of the things that's another one of those learned things. And doing what I do as a business and marketing strategist, I want to do the strategies and I want to implement, but 80% of the time, 80% of the conversation is around mindset. The thing is when you're having those internal conversations with yourself, you can do that. But then when I'm trying to have the conversation with somebody else and trying to get them to not internalize their past failures and not internalize their current situation, especially when it's a virus that's affecting their business, we have to innovate. We have to figure out other ways to do things. And you have to be able to get past that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, people's mindset, like when you say that, there's so many times, like when I start talking to somebody as a client, I spend a whole hour and a half just talking about mindset, about where they come from, and like how, like this happened. So how did you move forward from that? And then they keep on repeating the same story. I'm going, that's insanity. How did you move forward from it? What did you do? What did you say to get past that so that instead of going lateral, you went forward? And if one thing that I have a blessing of a gift for is it's easy for me in any industry to take whatever it is and make sense out of it so that I can make a simpler, better way for somebody to get unstuck, move forward, and still get tangible results. So when I hear you say that, it's just like so many people, have that, they hit a wall, and instead of going like, oh, what happened? I hit a wall. Okay, so there's got to be a way out of the wall because the wall's only one side. There's other stuff on the other side. So if when you change your attitude, you change your altitude, and you can put on glasses that you really like, oh, this is what's really happening. This is what happened. And this is my participation in it. What is it that I don't ever want to do again? It's that, and so what can I do to move forward that's simpler, better, easier to get unstuck? I mean, it's just, but a lot of it, no matter what industry, like in your industry, my industry, or I've helped people, what I call doing CSI, when I go into someone's practice and I'm looking at why their practice is not being productive, and you always got to look at, where the buck stops, so, and when, and I used to manage my office by statistics. So when I saw an upstat, everyone's really happy because everyone made more money, they got bonuses and things like that. But as soon as that stat started to come down, the first time I paid attention to it. The second time I just went, like what's the other ingredients that are in the pie here? And then the third time I'm in danger. So what's happening? And then it would always go back to my mindset. It was always, I was responsible. I was the one that really was responsible for those stats going up and down. And my staff they were doing directive things based upon what I wanted them to do. So if I was off-centered, I was not focused, I didn't have intention or purpose, then that showed in how like in my bottom line, my rate of return on what I did at the time. And it's still true even today.
You said something there that really stood out to me, and it all boiled down to, it starts with a decision. It starts with you deciding that you're going to move forward and that you're going to correct whatever the problem is, and then and the other thing you said that really resonated with me was the tangible results. That was one thing that I had a problem with when I was started in the whole coaching industry.
In the book, The Big Leap, he talks about that as being hitting the ceiling. So when you hit the ceiling, it's just like things are going well, things are getting better, and then you do something to totally screw it up.
That's true.
And things are going better. And then you adjust your radar, and you go back and things are going well, things are doing better, I'm being successful. And there's an old tape that's running in someone's head. So that's when, I have found, like maybe on my third, fourth, fifth, sixth session with somebody, that energy and that kind of topic-ish type thing comes up where I just stop and say, let's not talk about diet and exercise and proper sleep and, good attitude. I go, tell me what's really going on with you today, and they will say, something's irritating you, something's bothering you. They're mad at their spouse, they're mad at somebody, blah, blah, blah. Who is that person? And tell me about that, and just say, so what's the real feeling that you're feeling? And then when you identify that, you can go back, is there a previous time that they ever felt like that? And sometimes I've had people go down to being like, I think I was 3 years old when I remember getting up, and nobody was in the room and I felt abandoned, and so, and there's a technique in chiropractic that helps expedite that. But when you're when you're doing virtual work and on the telephone, it's a little bit, you have to keep on asking questions like that. And so, and usually at the very end, when they get to the time, place, person, energy, or thing, I usually just ask them, I said, so who do I remind you of? Your mother or your father or your spouse or whoever it is that they have an issue with? And they will say, you remind me of blah. And so I say to them after that, I'm going, great. And I said, so I go, let's talk about that. And the breakthrough is so interesting and intense, and I never really realized that pattern, even though it happens like so many times. I just thought it was normal. And I have a client that's in California that I asked her two sessions before her time was up with me. And I just said to her, I said, you have to think about, being on maintenance or like, connecting with me once a month or something like that. Excuse me. And she said, oh no, I'm staying. We're doing this. We're doing this. And I said, so what benefit did you get out of working with me? And she said, it's the first time I felt like me in 17 years. And she said, I don't have pain anymore. I have freedom of movement. I have freedom of thought. I sleep 100% better. I'm more productive at work. My relationship with my husband's better. I mean, it's the whole, she said, and she goes, and I said, and how did that happen? She goes, I don't know. She said, it's just like how I realized that one day that I had all these benefits of working with you. And she said, she goes, oh my God. She goes, I just didn't realize that, it was so subtle. But then, she had an event that happened that it kind of like all came together, and she felt like I have never felt so intimate, like connected with my spiritual being and my being ever in my life. As she said, 17 years, I think it is.
Wow. Sounds like I need a new chiropractor.
Well, that's the technique's called NET. So if you find an NET, if any of your listeners find a neuroemotional tracing or networking, I can't remember exactly what the initials mean, because I always just said NET, and I always thought it meant neuroemotional tracing or neuroemotional technique. The guy's still alive in San Diego who created that technique. His name was Scott Walker. But I've seen so many things happen for people when I use that line of questioning with them. And getting and taking a memory that is really active for them, and instead of being reactive for them, and making it into a memory as opposed to being a reaction. Because when it's a reaction, like you were just talking about a couple minutes ago, you store it someplace in your body. You store it wherever your weakest link is.
Yeah.
And you don't want those emotions stuck there, because emotions can undo anything that you do that's good for you to get rid of toxins in your life and to get rid of inflammation and or joint pain.
Yeah. Or cause all the above.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well. Yeah, absolutely. We had a client, some of my colleagues worked with several years back, who was a chiropractor, and he specifically, his what we refer to as a market dominating position was that he had realized that a lot of people, mostly women who have fibromyalgia, had been largely, it's very highly misdiagnosed, because if a doctor doesn't know what's causing your pain, they would just chalk it up as fibromyalgia and there's no cure for it. Well, this chiropractor had figured out that they were suffering needlessly because they may not have fibromyalgia as defined or as diagnosed. And I don't know what technique he was using, but he was relieving a lot of people, mostly women that are suffer from fibromyalgia. He was relieving a lot of people's pain, and he was overwhelmed. Again, I don't know what technique he was using. Maybe he was using that, but
he could have, but also too, what I find historically with anybody who has myofibrosis is that they have high sensitivity to smells. So when I hear that or see that, or, and experiencing that with somebody, the first thing I want to do is I want to take a look at what a questionnaire that I have, because I don't guess about people's health. I want to test, and one of my preliminary tests is called an MDQ, and the MDQ tells me if they're a candidate or how their liver's doing the job of detoxification. And so when I'm taking a look at that, those scores for people who have myofibrosis have really high sensitivity to smells and perfumes and things like that, that are like, they're almost over the top reactive to it. Like, I can't stand it, kind of thing. Those people have an issue with how their detoxifications that happen in the body. They're supposed to happen naturally, because when you detoxify, you're supposed to get rid of those toxins and put them either out of your body in feces or in urine. And how it gets there is the liver puts them into the large intestine, or sends the fluid to the kidneys to be processed to go to the bladder to be able to be peed out or pooped out, and if the gut's not healthy, then it keeps on recycling those toxins, and the liver gets overwhelmed and gets burdened. And then they take those toxins and they start storing them in blood, brain, bone, and fat. And that's when you have big problems start.
Wow. Very interesting. That body's an
Yeah.
amazing thing, man.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just like you can't, when someone tells me they had their gallbladder taken out or they had something taken out, I'm thinking it wouldn't have been there if you didn't need it.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you get it into the shape or why did you get it in the shape of, what did you do in your environment and things that you've eaten, thought, whatever that got you in the shape that you had the problem manifest to begin with, and at such a level that the outcome was to cut it out.
Yeah, for sure. I caught that you said there, eat and thought.
Mm-hmm.
They got you to that point because that is a very relevant conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Sure.
so man, I can just talk about this forever and ever, but we just don't have time for that as much as I would like to. What are some good news stories coming? You mentioned a couple briefly, but what are some good news stories coming out of the work that you're doing?
Well, last year, one of the things when I pivoted, I took an online course, like how to design an online course. And so when I first signed up for it, because my friend called me up, she goes, "You got to do this." And she never steers me wrong. And so I blindly said, "Okay, where's the link?" And I went in, I took a look at it. Well, the guy who teaches the course, I'm a Gay, from Success Road Academy, teaches you how to write an online course so that you're actually giving people exactly what they want to hear and need to hear that works for them. And so some of it's time consuming in doing the market research for that if you're a solo doing everything. But I found it very rewarding. And so I launched my program, Come Hell or High Water, just after the first of the year. I was going to do it back in November, and then a couple things happened that didn't sync. And so I decided, and my course is called Stronger Than Medicine. So I'm running the beta right now, and at the end of each session, because I want to make sure that I'm giving a lot of information and a lot of value, I will ask, the participants, I said, "So want to rate this course today on a 1 to 10? And no one ever rates it on the 1 to 10, but what they say, like, "I don't know. I think I've taken 15 screenshots. I've got 25 squares on my piece of paper here of things that I want to look up." Mm-hmm. And so, and they said, like, I've learned so much. And, one of the participants told me the other day he went grocery shopping, and he said, "I never buy lemon." And I was in the fruit and vegetable area, and I turned over and I looked over at this lemon, and the voice in my head was your voice saying, "You ought to buy that." And so he ended up buying lemon, and he started using fresh lemon juice as opposed to the reconstituted stuff, which is crap. Mm-hmm. And he, was buying, he started buying that, and he started like having less pain, more focus in his business. He's an author and writer. He's has a background it's kind of like a PhD in nursing, but it's not called that. But but for him, he's, very linear, and, he's taken in hand, like, I'm really getting how much sugar I'm eating. And I realize when I eat sugar, I get foggy brain, and get that brain fog. And so he goes, and when I can manage that, it works better for me. And so it's just like, he's putting lemon in his water now. He's cleaning up what he's eating, and he's getting more done in a week than been getting done in the last like 5 or 6 months. And so he's exercised, he's on his Bowflex or whatever it is that he exercises on, and he still takes time to go out and walk. I said, because I always, hugging a tree is important. And a couple of women that are in there just going, "I don't hate my kids anymore." Because when they get done doing their day and they haven't doing whatever they're doing, because they're always taking care of their business, they're taking care of their husband, their wife, their family, their brother, their sister, the dogs, the cats, they now feel like they have enough energy, sustained energy left over, so that they have energy left over for the people who they love and who are important to them at the end of the day. And it's improving, which, they said that my relationship feels like it's improving, like that. And he goes, "And I have a really great husband," but, he's going like, "Wow, what have you been doing?" And so I'm really pleased to hear that. And on the lesser course called Biohack Your Belly, is for, it's teaching, it's women based, is teaching women the very, very basics of like why people get sick, and what you can do about it. And having that mindset shift of like, it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. What matters is taking a look at your environment and how your body's responding in your environment. And then how you can take that information and you can step that moving forward. And by taking the right nutrition, that's really more personalized for you, and taking that the next step. Like, how do I incorporate exercise? How do I incorporate this information? So that's being well received. We started out with, a group of people that's like doubled in size, the class, from the first class to the second class. And so that's been, a lot of fun delivering that information. And, and my Stronger Than Medicine program kind of leaps into that also. And I always think of, I always want to find somebody who's a ghostwriter who will get me on the telephone, like we're talking like right now, and saying like, what do you know about like myofibrosis? Like I did not think about that until you brought that up, that the chiropractor treats that. And, and how you can like, well, if that's what you got, if you tell me what your problem is, I'll tell you how to approach it. And I'll tell you what questions to ask your medical doctor so that you get the answers that you need. Because if you ask the wrong question, you're going to get the wrong answer. And then you're going to base decisions moving forward on the wrong answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
That doesn't work either.
That's a practice that a lot of people don't understand. My wife is a master at that. I mean, I worked with a doctor and I knew him personally, and when I lived in Hawaii, and he actually ended up being my wife's general practitioner. Mm-hmm. And he would be like, well, I have an appointment with your wife today. I was like, that's private, doctor. You're not supposed to tell me that. Anyway, but it would blow his mind. She mm-hmm. knew more about her body than he did, because she took the time to study and she asked all the right questions. And this guy's smart as a whip. I mean, really, really good guy. Mm-hmm. And he would be stumped sometimes. It's like, oh, okay, let's test that then. Uh-huh. People look at doctors, and doctors are very well educated. There's no doubt about it. But you're limited by the knowledge that you've learned, and it's such a broad spectrum of information, and everybody's different, by and large. But it's mm-hmm. important to know yourself and ask those right questions.
Well, a lot of times, I always make the analogy that, doctors are like firemen. And so when you have a fire going on, you call the fire department to put the fire out in your house. They destroy everything, mm-hmm. all your heirlooms, everything. And when they don't know, in order to get in, they have to use the axes to get in your house through the window and the door, which just, destroys your entry points. And I always equate axes to surgery, and I equate the hoses to medications that wash down and subdue the symptoms. So you really don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so, I said, just remember, dentists have hoses and axes too, but they're the wrong person to address the problem. So when you have a carpenter come in, or someone who is a lifestyle medicine strategist like me, I look at it and go, oh my God, what a mess. Let's look at where the weakest link is in your health, and then fix that weakest link, fortify it, use what we already have that's going strong. Because there's 11 organ systems that you really basically take a look at. And I look at them very, very deeply. And then you can do targeted supplementation to manage or maintain or eliminate someone's problem before it becomes a huge crisis. Yeah. So, that whole, it's like looking like, how those pieces of the puzzle work together. It's like a Swiss watch. And they all have to work equally, because when one starts to slow down, it affects other places. And people don't know what those signs and symptoms are. They just know something's going on, and can't put their finger on it. And I call that Grim Reaper syndrome, because a lot of times we just will ask you, like our family, like your wife's really cool because she's taken time to understand what's going on with her body. So a lot of people don't do that, and they just, when they go into a doctor's office, they become paralyzed. And they don't remember anything. So I used to have my patients write down questions, ask them this, and sometimes they come back, they go, Dr. Pat, he wouldn't answer them. I said, find yourself a new doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not your doctor. That doctor is just have your best interest at heart, and your doctor doesn't get you. I said so.
Exactly.
And I want, I have a medical doctor that, that I lean on for information and also, for treatment. I have not taken anything but antibiotics in my life, and I've only taken antibiotics maybe I can count on one hand, and probably less, maybe 3 times in my whole life that I know of.
Yeah, we're the same way when it comes to stuff like that. At all costs, we're doing a more natural remedy beyond anything else. But exactly, I get that a lot with the doctors. And if a doctor, that's my problem that I have with the term expert. When experts, to me, it's assumed that they know everything that there is to know about that topic, and there's nothing else to learn. And unfortunately, there are some doctors out there that believe that they know what they know, and no patient's going to tell them any different, and they're just going to shut down. And that's not the right. You want to have that dialogue. You want to have that conversation.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them just don't know. I mean, I know of a woman who had bleeding in her intestinal tract for 10 years, and they couldn't figure out why. And so when they decided, we've tried everything. Now the only thing left for us to do on the Western medicine side front was to put a bag on you. And she's going, I've got 6 kids. And he said, well, I'm really sorry, but we just don't know what else to do. And so she decided to do something different and went out and found a physician who really looked at diet and nutrition. And when he did a food reactivity chart on her, she found out that avocados was the biggest, highest problem for her. And that when she stopped eating avocados, and maybe I can't remember what else, if there was something else, but avocados was the big offender for her. Her bleeding stopped.
No kidding.
And a year later, her intestinal tract was perfect. It was perfectly healed. So by doing that one, stepping out of the box of thinking, like I'm going to step out of my box because this obviously isn't working, and I've got 6 kids and I can't play with them anymore, and I can't go swimming. So if that's the case, then I want you, it's just like, I'm going to look someplace else. But you have to ask the question, well, was the Western medicine doctor incorrect? No, he wasn't. He was doing what he knows based upon his situation. But I implore people to look outside that box. When you're having surgery, you always go get a second, opinion. And that's just like, and you find out who to go see for the second opinion, not just go see anybody, but really find, somebody who's, is knowledgeable in that industry, so they can give you, like, if you do this is what I like helping people with. It's like, tell me this. Okay, so what did they tell you? So I go, so your choices to get better are number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. If you do number 1, this is what it means. If you do number 2, this is what it means. So I'm making it simpler for somebody to figure out what's their best thing for them. In order to move forward. But I love your wife already. I've never met her.
I think you two get along very well. In fact, I'm probably going to be putting you two in touch here shortly, because, that's one thing I say quite often as well. If you ask a surgeon, you're going to get a surgeon's answer. If you ask a general practitioner, a chiropractor, a nutritionist, you're going to get their version of the answer. Like you said, are any of them wrong? No, not based on their knowledge and their experience and their training. But you're going to get their answer. That's why it's important to get different, talk to different practitioners and decide what you feel is best for you and your lifestyle.
Yeah, and
that's important.
And sometimes when, just as a freebie, health hack, when you're looking up whatever it is you think that you have, in differential diagnosis, the idea is to, like, there's so many symptoms that can be so many things. And so it's like not to jump the gun and put the cart before the horse. And also, when you're looking at symptoms, because I remember one time I had a health crisis of some sort that I had to go and do a special procedure for. So when I went to go look up online at that point in time, I couldn't find any information on Google at all. And even when I went and looked in PubMed for the same information, I really couldn't get, it's like, either way too much reading. I wanted to have a concise, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I learned linearly. And so when I finally found the information, because I had to actually go in my books that I had packed, going, okay, so this means this, so if that means that, then, I put the pieces of the puzzle together so I could make a better decision of how I needed to move forward, and have a real conversation with my physician who was going to do the procedure, and so that I wanted to have done and needed to have done. Because, I can tell you, shoulder pain sometimes for women can relate back to having ovarian cancer. And so I had suspicious shoulder issue. And I went in to go see my OBGYN in Boston. And my OBGYN at that time was one of the top 3 OBGYNs in Boston. And I'm telling her this whole story, and she's saying, Pat, I have seen in my 40 years of being a doctor, a lot of women who have had, ovarian cancer. You don't have the look of that. Now, that's not diagnostic in itself, but that's something that you do look at first is like face. I always liked her because she was so open to, like looking at your environment, looking what you look like, color of your lips and that kind of stuff. And she said, but to be sure, because peace of mind is priceless, I'm going to send you over right now to the hospital and have them do an ultrasound. And she said, then you'll know, and you don't have to think this out for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And so that's what she did. And she said, and I don't remember what she wrote down as the reason why for me to do this. But this guy said, the guy who was reading who gave me the reading immediately just said to me, and he goes, I don't know why you have pelvic pain. And I went, oh, he goes, everything's cool. Everything's perfectly fine. I went, great, thanks a lot. See you later. And like that whole, like you're not ruminating that thought process in the background, and like when they have women come in to like repeat, like mammograms, that 2 weeks can destroy somebody's digestive tract, that it takes sometimes to go in there to have that follow-up, shot done. So it's interesting to, to make sure that, asking the right questions and that you get so that you can get the right answers so you can make the best decision for yourself. And then looking up the right information, and piecing those pieces of the puzzle together. And that's what people who are advocates help you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Well, how are you paying it forward now? We talked a little bit about everything you're doing, but let's pull it in right here real quick. How are you paying it forward, and what difference are you making within your clients? All right, listen up, abundant leaders. If you want to take full control of your personal economy, put your leadership and business skills to work, you absolutely can start your own business coaching business. The fact is, business owners need professional coaching more now than ever. And as a business coach, you get the opportunity to put your skills to work, provide a critical service, and get duly compensated. Now, if you're saying to yourself, I would like to change careers, I would like to enhance my current career, or I would actually like to be a profitable business coach, that then brings up the question, how do you structure a coaching business? How do you get paid? How do you get clients? These seem to be the biggest questions that I hear when I'm talking to people who want to start a coaching business, specifically a business coaching business. How do you do one-on-one coaching and group coaching? And how do you set up a member site to create continuity within my coaching business? And then, of course, even if you can figure all of that out, what's the investment? Well, I'm going to answer all of those questions for you and much more. All you have to do is go to BCB, Bravo Charlie Bravo, .apbusinessmastery.com. That's where I will be sharing with you how to give yourself a raise whenever you like, gain more leads than you can handle so you can be very selective about who you choose to work with. You'll find out how we get clients fast results so they stay and pay for years, not just months. I will share with you how we literally show the prospects the money so you don't have to sell. And more importantly, to me anyways, you will potentially be saving lives and marriages. Possibly even yours. It really is that serious. Now, if you're ready to take full control of your personal economy, put your leadership and business skills to work, and you believe that starting your own business coaching business might be the solution, then head over to BCB at apbusinessmastery.com. And don't worry about trying to write that down. You'll find the link in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
Well, I always give my initial consult for the first 30 minutes free. And so when someone buys my book, Why You're Sick, Fat, and Tired, there's a link in the book that gives somebody an opportunity to schedule time with me. And so when they do that, I get to see their health. There's a thing I call it a health status chart that maps out their what's going on with their bodies. And so I do that for free because it doesn't matter for me if you work with me or you don't work with me. What matters is that you get accurate information so that you can take that sheet and that information to a doctor who can understand what that sheet and information means, like to another lifestyle medicine strategist, to a functional medicine doctor. And then, because some people really have that, I got to see that person and, I have to see that person. I don't diagnose when I do virtual work. So that's not my job at that point in time. But I can help people sort out how those pieces of the puzzle go together in relationship to their how they answer their questions on the health status chart. It's very simplistic. It's not brain surgery. And the reason why I say that is because when I wrote my book, I wanted to make sure I got as much medical ease out of it. So I hired a friend's son who was 11 years old, and I gave him a highlighter, and I said, highlight any word that you don't understand the meaning of.
That's awesome.
But the rule is, if you want me to pay you, then you have to give me a word that means the same thing, which was a tool for him to learn words also. And now he's like a master, like Scrabble person. But what it did is it brought my reading level down so that even an 11-year-old kid could take my quiz in my book and understand it, the whole book. And that I'm very proud of, because I say I always wrote it in street language so that people would get, the average person could take it and not have to go get a dictionary out and figure out what does that word mean and that type of thing. So that's one of the things that I'm very, I'm happy about as far as like the book goes, because we all want to know where to start. And it's kind of like a DIY, which I don't like people doing DIY, because a lot of times people do that and they do more harm than good over a period of time. Mm-hmm. And they create other problems, health problems for themselves that they didn't have, initially. And they think that they're doing something good, and just like it makes something, to go beneath, like submerge below the surface and kind of fester then. So, what I'm doing with that is like, that's one of a big gift that I gave when I talked about doing this book, and offer when I'm doing this book, that people can get in touch with me in that regard and ask me questions directly. I'm very approachable, and that's what I do.
Wow. That's excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And I greatly appreciate you doing that as well. So we're going to close this up, and we're definitely going to have healthteamnetwork.com linked up in the show notes. How else can listeners get a hold of you and share, what did we not talk about today? We talked about quite a bit, but what did we not talk about that you want to hone in your message right here and now?
Well, if I was going to tell, men of abundance, or women of abundance, like 3 things that you could do like right now, one of the things that I would tell you to do is to hydrate and to eat clean and to move. Because if you don't move, then, everything in your body stagnates. And so the actionable step that's easy to do is hydrate, and don't drink tap water. Fluorine is a neurotoxin. And if you ever read your toothpaste labels, it's that, and in the back, there's a warning sign on your toothpaste. If you use Crest or Colgate, one of those, that says if swallowed, call poison control immediately. So it's like, buying and eating clean is a really important thing to do, because your body is a sanctuary, and you have to honor that sanctuary by putting good things in it. And also, the last thing is to think good thoughts and do good deeds.
Absolutely. I love that. Absolutely. Well, it has been a heck of a conversation. I really enjoyed this, and I learned a lot. And I always do from every conversation, but I learned quite a bit and many actionable steps that some stuff I'm doing right and have been for quite a while, but I need to step up my game a little bit, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can get the book, and you can, or if you have it already, and that take the questionnaire in it, and then make time with me, and we'll go over that. And you also, but I didn't answer you. You asked me a question about how people can get a hold of me other than my website. Is that I have I'm on LinkedIn as Dr. Pat Boulogne, not Patricia. And that's another way for someone to reach out to me that way. And besides buying the book, there's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, on digital services online. But I would recommend someone to buy that book in hard copy. And the reason why that is because when someone buys a digital book, I don't know about you, but I know about me, is that I don't listen to that digital book until I get back in my car. Mm-hmm. And with COVID going on, no one's driving as much as they used to drive. And so, and if it's in your face, you have an opportunity going, I got to do that. And it will keep on bothering you until you actually look at the book. It's not a really long book, and it won't take a long time to do, and it's also a really good tool to set up your New Year's resolutions for your health so that you can actually achieve them and have an actionable step of how to get there. And I can tell people exactly what's the best way to do that.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. And your type of book seems like the type of book that I like to have on hand anyway, because it's a reference. I like to take notes in it. And I can't I love audiobooks, and I haven't commuted anywhere for years. So that used to be I used to consume a lot of audio that way. But even with audio, you have to take notes on it, and you can't do that while you're out driving and listening to the audio. So
when I was listening to that book, The Big Leap, which made me buy it, I now have a rule that I ask people who say, you got to get this book. I always ask them, and if it was or you can get it on Audible. And I said, now, is that a book that I'm going to want to take notes in? Mm-hmm. Because if it is, I don't care. I don't get it on Audible. I just I want the hard copy to it. Because I have pulled off the road and into a rest stop, and and listen to the whole chapter all over again, whatever I'm listening to, and take notes.
Yeah, me too.
What happened? I thought you were going to be here 2 hours ago. Oh, I was in some road stop listening to your what? Listening to my book. I had to take notes. I had to do it then because I didn't want if I passed that moment and an opportunity, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, it sounds like we're a lot alike in that regard. Excellent. Well, great conversation. I greatly appreciate it. Go out, live your life of abundance. Keep paying it forward. You're making one hell of a difference, and I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Wally. I'm so glad we connected. We got this handled, and we did it. It was such a really great time. It's a great share.
Excellent.
My pleasure.
All right, your action step today is to really kind of just sit down and take inventory of your lifestyle, your health, and if it's exactly where you want to be, then keep doing that. And on top of that, pay it forward. Share with others what it is that you do. Be an example. I'm sure you're already doing that, but truly be an example to people that are suffering or may be suffering due to health issues that can be reversed. If your health and lifestyle is not where you think it should be at this point, then seek assistance. Whether you need a health coach, a life coach, a business coach, whatever the case may be, find a professional, anybody who can truly help you in that category of your life. I'm telling you that every single time that I have wanted to do something new in my life or improve something in my life, I could do it alone. I could do it on my own. I could watch multiple YouTube channels, read several books, and get it done. But it takes longer, and I make mistakes, which I learn from. Mistakes are fine, but I learn from those mistakes, and it usually costs me more time and money than it would to actually just go out and hire a professional who can hold me accountable, show me, do an assessment of my of whatever the situation is at that point in time, and start me at the place that I need to start at, and help me avoid any pitfalls that would cost me even more time and money. That's what I encourage you to do. I'm telling you, you think you can't afford it, you think you don't have the time, but it's what I call ethically cutting the line. To hire somebody to help you shortcut the process and shorten the learning curve to get whatever it is done that you need to get done in your life. Now, go out, live your life of abundance, and make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.